Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
Nice to be in orbit.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to day 3 of Agility Prime Week. This is perhaps the most exciting day for me. We have an incredible lineup. Senator Leahy from Vermont influencing me and my upbringing and even the way this event was designed. And we've got him coming up very shortly here. We're doing this morning in 3 acts. We've got the CEOs from all the major companies in the flying car industry all here today. And we're giving you, the audience, a chance to spend one-on-one possible time with them in breakouts where we're actually attempting to break the world record, which is going to be fun. We're going to explain many more details about that later, but I would like to introduce to you the host and leader of Agility Prime, Colonel Nathan Diller.
Super, thanks, Brandon. Really appreciate the great work that your team has done in producing this. We are looking forward to a fantastic day of really the leaders in this industry that have chosen to work with the Air Force through this Agility Prime program. We're going to kick this off. Take just a minute. I think we may have Dr. Roper calling in here any minute now with a fantastic opening by none other than the Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont. We'll take just a moment. As many of you know, yesterday had a couple of hiccups. As we mentioned at the very beginning, we're innovating under fire right now as we're working with a variety of distributed systems, putting together thousands of people. So apologize for the hiccups. I promise there will probably be more, but here's what we're going to do is keep pressing through all of those. So without further delay, I introduced this morning Senator Patrick Leahy. He has served in the United States Senate since 1974 and ranks as the first in seniority in the Senate. Senator Leahy is the vice chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee and the senior-most member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate Agriculture Committee. It turns out that one of our companies joining us here today, Beta Technologies, the developers of the innovative eVTOL solutions that we're showcasing throughout this week with Agility Prime, is headquartered there in Vermont and has done significant testing and development on the Ethan Allen Range. It's a range of 11,000 acres featuring complete testing and development for a variety of airborne systems. Senator Leahy has been a strong supporter of the advanced manufacturing and development of the workforce of the future that is sure to be necessary for the success of this market. So without further delay, please go ahead and roll the introduction from Senator Leahy.
I want to thank you all for being here. I'm happy to have this opportunity to join you, even though virtually. In fact, many feel this may be a Guinness World Record-breaking morning. I think you're attempting to have the most number of people in breakout sessions. That'd be pretty remarkable. But whether that record is broken or not, the success of the Small Business Innovation Research Program is going to be obvious to everybody. Everybody's following this over the next few hours. I also want to give a special hello to any moderators who happen to be Middlebury College graduates. Let me just say a moment of pride. Middlebury is one of Vermont's great institutions. Now, when SBIR was created in 1982, those of us who worked in the Congress and in the Appropriations Committee, we knew without having to be told that small businesses were engines of innovation and growth. But with the help of government funding for their most innovative ideas, they could unleash creative solutions that are going to benefit every American, not just those where the companies exist. I'm so proud of how Dr. Roper and the Air Force have recognized the power of SBIRs with Agility Prime. They recognize how government funding and private sector investment can build an industrial base that includes not just our great large manufacturers, but what we have to remember so much are innovative small businesses. Now, I'm a proud Vermonter, as you know, and I want to make sure to highlight one such company from the Green Mountain state of Vermont. I think this company demonstrates how well this approach works. The company, of course, is Beta Technologies. It was founded by Kyle Clark, and Beta is solving problems related to fast and cost-effective organ delivery. The top-notch team of talent he's assembled, but also the tried and true Vermont precision engineering know-how, have attracted private sector investment. I think that's a testament to the emerging commercial market here in the United States. Now also at this time, as our nation is pulling together to respond to the current pandemic, I'm proud to say that Beta is among the remarkable Vermont companies that have stepped up. Their engineers, this is really amazing, their engineers rapidly designed a cost-effective ventilator that can rapidly be produced. They're pushing it through the FDA approval process. They've repurposed their 3D printers towards making face shields for the local hospital, something really needed. Now, these examples speak to Beta's drive to innovate and solve problems on our local scale in Vermont, but also problems on a national scale that benefits all Americans. What Dr. Roper and his team have recognized is if you have funding from the Air Force, Beta and small businesses like it can more easily engineer their visions into technology that can be produced commercially, but is then in turn also available for example, acquisition by American-made vehicles used by the Department of Defense. Now, I know that every one of the presenters today will have similar stories. I know that their home state senators are equally proud of what they've accomplished, and they should be. This is one thing where senators, Republicans and Democrats alike, join together. And it's truly a great credit to Agility Prime. They could put on this virtual event with so many hometowns of the United States represented. You know, industrial base is not really about just what a country can make. More than that, it's about the people who dream up what to make. And then, of course, those people who make it. It's a creative combination of dreamers and makers. And that's what America's always had as a nation. So I'm proud of the Air Force. I'm proud of Beta Technologies and the other companies. Okay, let's bring on some more flying cars. Thank you very, very much.
Senator Leahy, this is Will Roper, head of Air Force Acquisition. On behalf of the entire Air Force team and specifically our Agility Prime initiative, thank you for giving remarks today and for continuing to show congressional leadership in areas of emerging technology. You've had such a distinguished career since joining the Senate in 1974, have seen many technologies be birthed in this country, and we are excited about having a new government partnership model to create dual-use technology in this century to help us continue to compete and win for the military, but to also compete and win economically. Thank you for your remarks and your continued endorsement of eVTOL technology. We look forward to working with you and with all of Congress to help make this a reality in this country. Thank you again, and be well during this interesting time of COVID. I hope everyone that's watching on Agility Prime right now is doing well. It's great medicine to start thinking ahead to an optimistic future. So thanks for putting this on. Thanks for being here. Be safe.
Super. Dr. Roper, thanks for your comments. Looking forward to having you checking in throughout the week and looking forward in particular to our events on Friday afternoon. As we continue now for the next segment, we have with us today Mike Brown, who is the director of the Defense Innovation Unit. Mike Brown has been at the Defense Innovation Unit, which started in 2015. It fields leading edge commercial capabilities to the military, faster and more cost-effective than traditional defense acquisitions. And it strengthens our national security innovation base by making sure that there's a close partnership that's started. Previously, Mr. Brown served as a White House Presidential Innovation Fellow at Department of Defense, and previously as well as a CEO of Symantec Corporation from 2014 to 2016. It is my honor to introduce Mike Brown this morning and to be able to talk to the great partnership that really was started through DIU with this eVTOL industry and the partnerships that DIU initiated through those great cooperations that they started there in Silicon Valley and now have taken beyond into other places. Mike Brown.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate the introduction. This really is a fantastic event that you are putting on, and we're very excited to be a part of it. Agility Prime is a perfect example of innovation that's happening in Air Force acquisition, not a program of record, but which is how most technologies come into the Air Force, but an example of how we can work together in a public-private partnership to accelerate bringing commercial technology into the military. And that really is what the Defense Innovation Unit is all about. So maybe I can take a couple minutes to talk about what the Defense Innovation Unit does and a little bit about how we worked and are bringing Joby Aviation to this effort. So if we look at DIU's mission, you really see that we aim to be fast moving, and fast moving here means at commercial speed, not at our traditional military speed for acquisition. And DIU has a joint mission, meaning we go across the various organizations in DoD. And what makes DIU unique, why Ash Carter set it up, was to exclusively focus on commercial technology, bringing the best of what commercial companies can bring into the military. Of course, you see a picture there of our warfighters. We always keep in mind the fact that these are our customers. We're working to get the best technology in their hands, and exercises like Agility Prime are an example of that, as opposed to if we look at some more traditional technology that have been brought in, often we get technology to our warfighters after it's not leading edge, and we need to give the very best to our warfighters. Our mission really has evolved through leadership over the time that DIU's been in place, started in 2015 by then Secretary Ash Carter. And his whole focus was, how do we accelerate this adoption of commercial technology? So we focus on adoption and the warfighter here, as opposed to how do we become a rapid prototyping organization. The prototypes don't mean anything if we don't get the technology in the hands of the warfighter. And then from Secretary Mattis, since DIU is a small and new organization, he really emphasized the need to transform, to bring new capabilities to the military. What could we do that was really presenting a new type of capability that scales, that goes across services? Well, I can't think of anything that could have a bigger impact than something like eVTOL, which, as we know, could bring a great benefit to multiple services and a whole new capability. And then under our current leadership with Dr. Griffin, the idea is, how do we strengthen what is called out in the National Defense Strategy as the National Security Innovation Base, which means we want to leverage more than the capability of the primes, the usual suppliers to the Pentagon, and bring out the best of the small innovative companies wherever they are in the US, and we've worked with a couple of international companies as well. In addition, what can we do to leverage what investors are thinking about? How can we get defense needs into their thinking so that we can encourage more entrepreneurial activity that's focused on the Department of Defense? As we all know, in the birth of Silicon Valley in the 60s and 70s, defense was driving innovation at that time. Well, it's completely changed at this point, where commercial technology in a number of fields is driving innovation, and we have to have access to that. So if we go to the next slide, which says why commercial, we have really the reason why Ash Carter felt it was so important to establish Defense Innovation Unit. On the left, you see the R&D spending of the top 5 tech companies there. You can see about $71 billion. And that's an order of magnitude more R&D than is spent by defense primes. So this is not to minimize at all the important contribution that defense primes bring. In fact, we love the fact that they're dedicated to defense needs. And the companies on the left here, the commercial companies, obviously are serving a much broader market than defense. But we want to make sure that, one, the commercial companies are thinking about what defense needs, and two, we're able to take advantage of that leading edge technology, as we talked about, to get that in the hands of the warfighters. On the right, you kind of see an aggregate here of what's happened in a longer time frame, going back to the late 50s, when federal research and development was pretty equivalent to what was being spent in the commercial sector. And that's really diverged as we go over the last several decades to see the commercial or business R&D as a multiple of what the federal government is spending. So again, just another reflection of the fact that we need to be accessing that commercial technology and bring that to the warfighter. And if we go to the next slide, it really shows where DIU is focused from a technology standpoint. These are 5 different technology portfolios where we concentrate our efforts. And I think you can see immediately all of these would be of interest to the military. The eVTOL effort fits under our autonomy portfolio. And even though some of the companies that we're looking at today have piloted aircraft, of course, the vision for the future is those could be completely autonomous, which would be another whole set of capability that we can bring. So probably no surprise to you, these are areas where the commercial sector is leading what we might be doing in the military alone. Therefore, ever more important to access what's happening in these sectors and bring that capability to the military. Some of what we believe we're able to achieve here is leveraging the private investment that's occurring here. In fact, of the companies that we've worked with, there's about $9 billion of private investment that DIU is leveraging as we bring some of these companies to the forefront. We've written about 150 contracts in our 5 years, 120 of which go to non-traditional companies, and 60 of those would be first-time vendors to DoD. Obviously, Joby would be a great example of that. Great example of the leverage as well. Joby has raised about $700 million in private capital to fund their efforts. I think DoD has contributed somewhere between $10 and $20 million to that effort. So that's an example of the kind of leverage. Obviously, Joby would be a first-time vendor to DoD. This is exactly what we want to do in the Defense Innovation Unit. Okay, if we go to the next slide, which has the case study, you can see the problem that we started with, which is how would we get supplies moved around in difficult environments that would be more suitable to air than they would be to ground transportation. We typically have had not enough aviation assets to do this, or maybe not the right kind. Electric vehicles here being very, very quiet, which has some advantages as well. And you can see our process here. So we start with curating this problem, which is a joint problem coming from multiple services. And then you see in the middle a CSO process. That's a competitive process, which we ran to see, okay, who has the best technology out there. We ran this in 2017, selected Joby that we have been prototyping with since that time. The picture there you see is of Hunter Liggett, which is a range that we have access to and help provide. So you can see the solution there, some of the benefits. What DIU brings to this is obviously some prototype contract dollars, which would be revenue to a company. In this case, offering a range, which is a valuable asset to be able to prototype. And maybe most importantly, bringing the military requirements. So the companies presenting today obviously are pursuing a very large commercial market, which is fantastic. But we also want them to have defense needs in mind so that as they think about expanding their market, defense can be there as another vertical for them to pursue. And one of the things we're trying to do at Defense Innovation Unit is make that additional market, the military market, not so scary to pursue. So have barriers that are low enough in terms of what it takes to get access to defense contracts. We want to make that as low as possible so we can look as much as possible like just another customer, which defense probably can't ever really achieve that, but that's our aspiration to do. So we've been very excited to be working with Joby over this time period to demonstrate that what we have prototyped actually has the potential to deliver a lot of value as we think about supplying not only Air Force, but other services as well. So again, very enthused to be a part of the day here, to be part of contributing leading edge commercial technology to the military, and very excited that the Air Force is picking this up as a major initiative as we move forward. Let me turn this back over to Nate.
Mr. Brown, great. Thanks so much for your time and for being here and the fantastic leadership, especially providing the leadership with helping DoD understand how we can work with some of the most innovative companies in the world there. and again, helping us prototype a little bit that vision started by Secretary Carter of how we reach into those areas. As Dr. Roper will mention multiple times, we see that 80% of the research and development is happening outside of the Department of Defense. And so being able to take an opportunity like DIU has done with Joby and really prototype that a bit for us, we now have a similar opportunity to expand that and follow that model. And that was done to some degree through the SBIR process. So you have a set of companies that we're going to introduce here this morning. All of these companies have chosen to compete and have won in a contract in this SBIR process that the Air Force has innovated so significantly over the last year or so. And you'll get to hear more details tomorrow afternoon, how that process works with Chris Benson, who's done fantastic work in taking hundreds of contracts and being able to award those contracts, in some cases in just the period of a day. Fundamentally, right, and these are not large contracts, they're not massive contracts, because on those types of contracts, we have to be very deliberate, and those take a long time. But for these smaller companies, we have just a huge appetite to make sure that we're bringing in that innovation, bringing in those companies, making it easy. And that, right, that's not easy for us to make it easy in the Department of Defense. But I'll tell you, you have an army of people in the Air Force that have been putting significant thought into that. And what you see today is the fruits of that work, of these 6 companies in particular that have said, we are interested in taking this low-level introduction through a SBIR Phase 1. In some cases, some of them have then gone on to win SBIR Phase 2 that comes with a little bit more money associated with it. And the opportunity that gives us from what started as an ad hoc basis of a few different companies to now do some quick learning that eventually rolled easily into our Agility Prime effort. And now, as our program executive officer, Ms. Rutledge, just said, we're taking advantage of all of the fantastic opportunities given to us by the Defense Acquisition authorities, so that we'll take OTAs, and you saw what was released yesterday for companies of any size. If we have the opportunity to leverage the SBIRs, we'll do that. And again, many thanks to DIU that helped us kind of initiate some of those efforts, helped us find some of these companies, and absolutely thrilled to get this morning started off with Act 1, 2, and 3. I'll hand it over to Brandon to talk how we're going to work through those acts with our Heat 1, 2, and 3 companies, those companies of that Uber Elevate size. So over to you, Brandon.
Thanks. Perfect timing. And Colonel Diller, I don't know if you know this, but I represent the Difference, which is actually a SBIR company. We've gone through SBIR's Phase 1, 2, and 3, and we power some of the innovation behind AFWERX, one of the innovation arms of the Air Force. And so we're very proud to be here as a SBIR company and as part of the AFWERX Air Force team. I also want to give a special shout out to Senator Leahy. Thank you for the reference to us as the moderators and facilitators of the Agility Prime Week, and Vermont as well. And all the Middlebury team that is watching because of you, Senator Leahy, and all your visits to us in the lunchroom back in the day when we were in college. Thank you for that. I can't believe how lucky I am to be sitting at home with my kids downstairs. We're going to come up and visit later, my daughters, with Nate's daughters as well, for what we have planned at the end of this hour. But it's in 3 acts. And even though we're at home in this different world or the new COVID normal, it's my honor to present to you 6 speakers, 6 CEOs, 6 leaders in the flying car industry pioneering the way forward. And in the spirit of that pioneering and what Senator Leahy said, we're doing this morning in 3 acts. The first act is what we call fire starters. That's where we're gonna have each CEO give a less than 5-minute, yes, we're gonna cut them off if they dare go over 5 minutes, on what they're working on, what they're inspiring, what their challenges are. We leave them up to them for their fire starter pitch, because then you, the audience, and we had 25,000 people watching on Monday, so hopefully we'll break that record today. You, the audience, get to go and participate with them in a deep dive in your own breakout. So that's part 2 or act 2. We'll send you from here. The instructions will be on screen. Definitely don't go now. We want you to hear their pitches first. We'll send you out to work with them in breakouts. and have you the opportunity to work in even smaller groups to think about how flying cars and what each of these CEOs is inspiring you to do. And we're hoping there to break the world record. World record for the largest number of virtual breakouts at the same time. Zoom, our partners, we're on a DARPA Zoom call right now. We'll switch out to other Zoom calls in order to enable that functionality of full collaboration. Truly a phenomenal way to collaborate during these times where we're at home. The third act will be all coming back together. We'll debrief a little bit what we learned in those deep dives. And we'll also be joined by some very special guests, both senior ranking members of our country, as well as some younger people being inspired by them. So once again, 3 acts. First are fire starters, less than 5-minute pitches. Second act, you, the audience, get to participate directly with these CEOs. And third act, wrap it all together back here with some very special guests. So Nate and I think just you, Nate, right? You're going to come back online and we're going to do some introductions, perhaps with Christine, to the 6 CEOs and give them their less than 5-minute amazing pitches. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Before we do that, I want to introduce Christine Jajan. She is over at the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, who has done fantastic leadership in presenting a variety of different standards, being able to bring together this eVTOL community. And Christine has recently, just over a year now, has taken the helm of bringing this community together. And she is going to be with us this morning to first introduce the fire starters, and then, as Brandon described, bring those fire starters back together at the end for some lessons and discussion and some questions from the audience. So please continue to send those questions into us. And with that, Christine, I hand it over to you for an introduction to all these fantastic leaders in the industry coming here with us this morning. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Brandon. So good morning, everyone. Very excited to be working with our panelists this morning. So I'll start off going in order of the breakout rooms here. So we have our first room, which is Paul Ciara, who is the executive chairman of the board of Joby Aviation and was the co-founder of Pinterest. So welcome, Paul. If you wanted to, be our first fire starter here, we turn that over to you.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Obviously, want to take an opportunity to thank Mike Brown at DIU and the entire team at Agility Prime, including Dr. Roper and Colonel Diller. So my name is Paul Ciara. As mentioned, I am executive chairman at Joby Aviation and have served in that role for about 6 years. For the past 10 years, Joby Aviation has been at the forefront of electric aviation. Our early engineers contributed important work to a number of pioneering electric aviation programs, including NASA's X-57 Maxwell and their LEAP-TEC distributed electric propulsion platform. However, for the past 6 years, we've been 100% focused on developing and now certifying a new next-generation civilian aircraft that's both all-electric and capable of vertical takeoff and landing. It's been designed to deliver safe, quiet, and affordable air taxi service to cities around the world. The vehicle specifications have been optimized for moving people. Those specifications include 150 plus miles of range on a single charge, a high capacity, a pilot plus 4 passenger seats, as well as high cruise speed, more than 200 miles per hour. In designing the vehicle, we focused really on 3 core goals, and in roughly this order. First, safety, through redundancy in the overall vehicle design and the subsystem architecture. Second, low noise, and that's low noise in both takeoff and cruise. We think low noise is really critical for high volume and high frequency operations in and around the places where people want to go. And finally, third, favorable economics, with significantly lower cost per operating hour than traditional helicopters and small planes. And that's important to delivering on our mission. We want to make sure that this is a service and a vehicle that can be used by not just the wealthy, but over time, everyone. The problem that we are intending to solve for our customers is the one of ground traffic. It's a problem that's becoming ever more acute in cities here and around the world, as we've got greater and greater concentrations of people in and around those cities, and a set of ground infrastructure, bridges, roads, and tunnels that haven't been able to keep up with those changes. Some of the potential solutions to this problem, things like ride sharing and potentially autonomous vehicles, look, they're going to make the problem of traffic on the ground worse before they make it better. So for us, our goal is to deliver a new transportation solution, one that can get folks to their destination 5 to 10 times faster, can do that at greater safety, and over time at similar costs to driving on the ground, also while accelerating a shift to more sustainable transportation. Where we are in the process is we're currently test flying what we've been calling the generation 2 of the vehicle, after early work on both subscale and a first full-scale technical demonstrator in 2015 and in turn 2017. We're actively now moving that vehicle through the FAA type certification process. At the same time, we're beginning to ramp our production plan. Here's a render of a manufacturing facility that we're beginning to construct in Marina, California, one that will over time be able to produce more than 250 vehicles per year. Joby as a company, from just 5 folks 6.5 years ago, now numbers more than 500 people across a wide range of engineering and technician disciplines in our 3 California offices. As was already mentioned, we've raised more than $720 million from leading angel, institutional, and most recently strategic investors, including the folks at Intel, Toyota, and JetBlue. Our mission as a company is to try to save 1 billion people an hour a day that they're currently wasting sitting in traffic, not spending time productively, whether that time is productive at work or productive at home. While we are firmly focused on ensuring that we can deliver this service at scale to the civilian market, we've been very excited about the opportunity to partner with government agencies, including the folks at DIU, and now with the folks at Agility Prime, in order to both de-risk and accelerate our plans. Thanks so much again for making a little bit of time, and happy to join everyone in the breakout room.
Thanks, Paul. 4 minutes on the spot. Love the presentation, love the timing. Everybody, Paul, don't forget to visit his breakout after everybody gives their fire starters. Christine, will you do us the honors of moving this along?
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Brandon. So in our breakout room 2 is Kyle Clark. So Kyle is with Beta Aerospace. He is the founder, and prior to his current work, Kyle was the founder of Venture Co. and the director of engineering at Dynapower, where he and his team of programmers, engineers, and technicians were responsible for the development of all Dynapower product lines. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle. Welcome. I'm excited to hear your fire starter.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. That was good stuff, Paul. Kyle Clark from Beta Technologies. I'm just going to share my screen and do a couple slides as well, and talk a little bit about us as a company. So Beta Technologies, we're a relatively young company. We're only 3 years old, but we're a group of pragmatic and passionate engineers and pilots who have owned and flown and operated many different aircraft that are driving to contribute to the eVTOL market with a philosophy of simplicity. And we do that from our business perspective, from our aircraft perspective, and we're attempting to rationally meet the missions of the Air Force and other customers by creating a team culture of diversity, passion, and commitment with a common goal of exploiting the benefits of electric propulsion while respecting the drawbacks. And I think uniquely in this space, we recognize that there's this little kernel of insight and enabling technology focused on the electric propulsion, on the batteries, motors, and the inverters. And everything else is ancillary to that as enabling technologies. It's not the airfoils that enable the electric propulsion to exploit its benefits and become very cost effective. So the way we think about this is there's the batteries and motors, inverters, and all of the design space between that and the mission, which is the most important part of this, is just simple execution and implementation of these core technologies. And when we think about designing an aircraft, we think about making it light, carrying a lot of energy, converting that precious energy very efficiently, and then pushing a very slippery aircraft through the air. But it doesn't start and end there. We also think about the network and the recharging infrastructure necessary to keep these things full of energy, the pilots and the training, the reliable manufacturing, the consistent manufacturing,
and the subtle changes that have to happen to all of the different portions of traditional aerospace. So up here in green, the enabling technologies actually constitute a relatively small but important part of the overall system to get to a successful mission completion. And that, of course, includes the aircraft, the recharging, the training, the airspace, the manufacturing. And at Beta Technologies, we've taken this approach that the most reliable component is the one that's not on the aircraft. The lightest component, of course, isn't on the aircraft. In our designs, which a lot of folks have seen, we designed a Generation 1 aircraft that we flew 200 test flights with. And now we've designed and built several of the Generation 2 aircraft that omit things like tilting wings and variable pitch props, liquid cooling gearboxes, retractable gear, articulating rotor heads, flaps, slats, speed brakes, air data systems, multiple chemistries of batteries. All those things fundamentally don't need to be on the aircraft to complete its mission. And as pilots and operators, we recognize that those are the elements that have typically kept aircraft on the ground. So we're excited to be a part of Agility Prime, excited to talk to some of y'all in the breakout session, and thanks for the opportunity here.
Thanks so much, Kyle. And just a note to all those people watching, Kyle, you guys are already inspiring people to jump into the breakouts to start with you. Everyone who's watching, please stay with us here. We've got 4 more pitches to go, 4 more fire starters to go. So stay with us here, and we'll be in the breakouts shortly. Just a shout out to everybody watching right now. But Christine, will you introduce our next speaker? And thank you so much, Kyle.
Great, thank you. So next up we have Ed Reyes from Sabrewing. So Ed is a retired Air Force veteran, serial entrepreneur and inventor. Several of his key technologies that Ed has developed are directly related to the field of aviation, including a patent for a unique nitrogen-powered turbine engine that does not combust any fuel at all. All right, Ed, fire away.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Christine, and thank you, Colonel Diller, and Brandon, you too as well. We appreciate being here. I'm going to go ahead and jump to our presentation and move through that fairly quickly. So this is a presentation on Sabrewing and the Rigel Aircraft Company, and Sabrewing Aircraft Company, excuse me, and the Rigel Aircraft. Anyway, Sabrewing really is built to be the first heavy lift long-range autonomous cargo in the world, and that includes the ability to travel from any airfield or even no airfield. So we can both take off conventionally as a CTOL aircraft or land and take off as a VTOL. The Rigel B, our production aircraft, can carry 5,400 pounds in VTOL in ULD containers. We can do 10,000 pounds in CTOL. But we can carry 2 ULD1s, 4 LD2s, and 2 LD3s, which are the common cargo containers that you would find in cargo aircraft in the lower decks of the cargo aircraft. So it was really born of this problem. How would you get 5,400 pounds of cargo in an airport that's this big? Obviously, there's not much to it. It's really more of a helicopter airport. But a lot of these airports are quite far from locations, especially if you're looking at Alaska or Canada or even other parts of the world. In Canada specifically, only 17% of the population lives where there are roads available to bring cargo. So obviously, the remainder, the other 82%, 83% require a regular supply of cargo. And that really is the largest segment of the population in the world. Helicopters traditionally are very limited in payload and range and even weather conditions. And in looking at the competition out there, what our competitors were looking like as far as cargo drones go, were the smaller ones, but they were really limited to airports, runways, and same weather type of restrictions that other manned cargo or even manned aircraft had. So what we did was we came up with the Rigel air vehicle. Very quickly, the wings fold to allow it to land. They can actually even fold in flight in the hover, so it'll allow it to land in a very tight space. Everything loads through the nose. We don't require any special loading equipment or any other type of equipment to load and unload cargo. It's semi-autonomous, so it's remotely operated. So if for whatever reason you lose the SATCOM, with the remote operator, the aircraft can continue its mission and actually even land even in remote places without operator having to have the operator in the loop. And so we do also have a fully autonomous detect and avoid system, which allows us to fly into Class B and C airspace, and even Class A, which is above 18,000 feet. We are currently working towards our FAR Part 23 certification, and that includes flight in the known ice. And then we've also got a quadruple, and actually it's been upgraded since. It's a sextuple, satellite command, control, and communication link. These are the types of containers it carries. As I mentioned before, we can carry 10,000 pounds of cargo in the CTOL mission, 7,000 pounds in a short takeoff conventional landing, and 5,400 in a pure vertical VTOL. And this is what the containers look like. We have several development partners that we work with. Composites are provided by Tori. They were actually our very first partner. We have a very robust 8-sensor detect and avoid system, and these are some of our development partners from Garmin to Honeywell to now Collins. So a number of different engineering partners that are helping us to help develop it. SATCOM is provided by Cobham, and then our autopilot is provided by Elroy Air. We have a joint venture partnership with the Aleut Community of St. Paul Island. They also happen to be our very first customer. Since then, we've actually added more. We have firm orders now for 65 aircraft. We are going to be testing out of the St. Paul Experimental Test Range, which is affectionately known as the Spectre Complex, which is 126,000 square miles of range, almost all over water, and a 6,000-foot runway with a Category 3 ILS approach. They're also going to be responsible in the joint venture for training pilots, mechanics, technicians, and dispatchers. They'll also serve the MRO role for Sabrewing Aircraft and provide parts and manuals and documentation. We have 7 patents. These are actually multifaceted patents, so these that apply to the field of eVTOL and include safety, sensor fusion, and several others. Our SBI contract that we just won is 2 years for $3.25 million. And it provides for demonstrations on the Rigel. And with that, that's the what it looks like, our Rigel A, our prototype aircraft next to a standard helicopter.
Thanks so much, Ed. Great pitch. Look forward to joining you in your breakout and seeing you later in the week as well, I think.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, Christine, queue up our next ones because where lots of the audience are joining. Their numbers are climbing very quickly. Getting excited to break the world record and see all your guys' deep dives.
Well, in our breakout room 4, we're going to have David Merrill from Elroy Air. So Dave is the co-founder and CEO of Elroy Air, a company dedicated to developing next-generation advanced vertical takeoff and landing cargo aircraft systems. The company's first aircraft, the Chaparral, is designed for fully automated flight and cargo handling with lightweight modular containers. David, on to you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to brief and to Air Force leadership for making this event happen. I think electric VTOL, hybrid VTOL systems are really the most exciting part of aerospace today. And Elroy Air is an aerospace and logistics startup. We are expanding the reach of logistics with advanced autonomous VTOL systems and software. My co-founder and I started Elroy Air 3.5 years ago, and we've built an amazing talented team that is busy building the future of this new chapter in aerospace. So the Chaparral, which you can see a technical demonstrator on this slide, it is a long-range, multi-mission, autonomous VTOL aircraft system that is runway independent and designed for 300 pounds of payload over a 300-mile range. We designed it originally to serve express logistics, and we are now adapting it for humanitarian aid, disaster relief logistics, rapid autonomous resupply for dismounted expeditionary troops, and other specialized missions for the U.S. Air Force. The Chaparral deploys from a C-130. A hybrid electric powertrain enables fuel versus payload trades, including self-deploy, self-return to base. And then automated ground navigation and payload loading and unloading is enabling a safe, high-throughput logistics with minimal operator touch. Our team flew a full-scale demonstrator aircraft in August, September, and October last year. And the image you see on this slide is from the McMillan Airfield at Camp Roberts, California, that began as actually part of a 2019 collaboration with the Navy. And now we're on a mission to serve the United States warfighter, to put new, transformative vertical flight systems into their hands with a robust, easy-to-use system. Not just because orbs are cool, they are extremely cool, coolest thing in the world, but they're going to be incredibly useful. And that's why we're getting up every day with enthusiasm to go after this. So in August, we started a phase 2 SBIR with the Air Force. Major Mike Arth of AFSOC discovered us and brought us into the fold. And Air Force leadership, including Nate Diller, have been extremely supportive. So we are super enthusiastic about this opportunity to collaborate with the U.S. Air Force. The collaboration is focused on accelerating the core Chaparral platform, rapid deploy of our system from a C-130, and making our pod interface extensible to new payloads. We operate within the constraints of a small company, but we're approaching aircraft design with engineering rigor and best practices. Our small team has been recognized by experts in the field of vertical flight. And this is a capability, by the way, that also has applications to other branches of the U.S. military, including the Army and the Marines, who are both enthusiastic about autonomous aerial resupply too. So I think this new industry is exciting because by and large, the large aerospace primes are not the companies out ahead. If you look at the teams on this list, this roster, Elroy Air, Joby, Lyft, Beta, Sabrewing, these companies didn't exist 20 years ago. And aside from Piasecki and Joby, they didn't even exist 5 years ago. So I think small companies and startups actually have a disruptive advantage right now, which is enabled by a new set of technologies powering this part of aerospace, because we can do more with less. We can build systems that don't have vendor lock-in or commitments to existing product lines. And it gives the U.S. Air Force a really strategic opportunity to bring up this new chapter of aerospace and bring it to its feet. So anyway, we have huge gratitude to be part of this mission, teamed with the U.S. Air Force. We're going after it. Thanks for your attention, and I look forward to seeing many of you in the breakout room.
Sure, you'll have a lot of visitors. Thanks, David. Christine,
All right.
next one.
Next up in breakout room 5, we'll have John Piasecki. So John is the president and CEO of Piasecki Aircraft, a business focusing on development and flight demonstration of advanced rotorcraft and unmanned aerial vehicle platforms and technologies. So 30 plus years of a career in the rotorcraft industry, has focused on corporate strategy, requirements, and program development and management, oversight of the company's flight research programs. So John, welcome. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Good morning. Thank you all very much. I'm very happy to be here and join our fellow vertical lift enthusiasts. I am President and CEO of Piasecki Aircraft Corporation, and our company is dedicated to the advancement of vertical flight and unmanned technologies. We're a small R&D business, and we're focused on bringing concepts through design, development, and into flight demonstration. Our company history goes all the way back to the beginning of the vertical flight industry, developing the second helicopter in the United States, and has gone through transitions over the years. We sold our production company to Boeing, which now continues to produce the Chinook for the U.S. Army. And the R&D group that split out from that is the core of our R&D activities and heritage. We love innovative ideas, and our objectives are to try to act as a catalyst within our industry as an ideas engine and bringing new ideas to flight. Today in our breakout session, I'll be covering two of our major transformational air mobility programs. One is called the Aerial Reconfigurable Embedded System, and the other is the PA-890 eVTOL, Slow Rotor Wing Compound. Both of these aircraft are designed for different missions and have unique attributes that make them well suited to their design objectives. The aerial reconfigurable embedded system was a concept that was born out of a significant concern within the military services about how to recover casualties in complex terrain and hostile environments. And as many of you probably saw the Black Hawk Down movie, that can be a very lethal environment. So they wanted something that could actually land in a city street and be able to extract casualty without putting crew at risk. So in considering that mission set, we also recognize that the economics of the circumstances demanded multi-mission capability beyond just CASEVAC, but to include cargo and other UAS missions like sensor platform, ISR, reconnaissance, comm relay, et cetera. So we designed a system that could cut across multiple missions, leveraging modularity to be able to allow the commander to be able to have a flexibility to orient the aircraft to his specific needs at a specific time. The objective there is to achieve economies of scale for the flight module, for the common flight module, while providing flexibility to the operator. The second program that we'll cover in our breakout session is our PA-890E VTOL. And this product was actually driven from the requirements of commercial customers. We have 2 launch customers for this effort, and their missions are very demanding. They are well beyond the current limits of the urban air mobility requirements, and we are really focused on being able to capture existing revenue-generating portions of the vertical flight industry. And those include things like emergency medical services and specialty logistics, as well as personnel transport. The configuration is a slowed rotor wing compound. It leverages the very efficient low disk loading lift capability of the open rotor, and then has a high aspect ratio wing and a swiveling tail rotor that allow the aircraft to take off very efficiently with minimum download. And then as the aircraft transitions into forward flight, we leverage the high L over D of the high aspect ratio wing, and the tail rotor rotates into a thrusting position to unload the rotor from lift and propulsion responsibilities. This allows about a doubling of the efficiency of the aircraft relative to conventional helicopters. At the same time, it is not a radical departure from well-known technologies that the FAA is very familiar with and has a clear path for certification. The design objective for this vehicle is to be able to conduct a 200 nautical mile mission. We're projecting a 50% reduction in direct operating costs, low noise in the 68 to 73 dB arena, which is achievable by virtue of the low disk loading and low tip speed of the main rotor.
Jen, I got voted to be the bad guy. About 20 more seconds, please.
Okay, great. So we are looking forward to going into more detail with people who are interested in the breakout session. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Sorry to cut you off, John. Just trying to be fair. We've got over 3,200 people on the website right now. Very excited. Christine, can you?
I'm glad to be the good cop, Brandon.
Yeah, I know. Lucky you, right? How did I draw the short straw?
All right, so our breakout room number 6, we have Matt Chasen from Lift Aircraft. So Matt is the founder and CEO. Lift Aircraft is on a mission to make the joy and utility of personal vertical flight accessible to everyone. So in late 2018, Lift unveiled Hexa, an ultralight personal aerial vehicle that is now in production and anyone can fly. So no pilot's license required. All right, Matt, fire away.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hosting. Really want to want to shout out again to Agility Prime and the Air Force for leadership in these uncertain times and supporting this new industry. I'm super excited about what we're doing, what everyone's doing in the space. I think we have a unique approach. Again, my name is Matt Chasen. I'm the CEO and founder of Lift Aircraft. And we're doing things a bit differently than others. We're not pursuing right away commercial transport. We're focused more on a general aviation approach. So we believe that people want to experience flying these new types of aircraft. And I think one of the best things about this new technology is that it reduces many of the barriers that exist in general aviation and in personal. As many of you probably know, general aviation, personal aviation has been on a decline in the U.S. for the last several decades. So we see eVTOL technology, autonomy, and different economics that we can achieve leveraging this tech as a way to really, for the first time in history, consumerize flying for people. So we founded Lift Aircraft in late 2017 after recognizing that there's an opportunity to leverage an existing regulatory classification to try to start flying, let people fly as soon as possible. And that class, as I think some others are approaching this in a similar fashion, is the ultralight class of aircraft. And ultralights, the rules the FAA has for the ultralight class have been in place since 1982. Ultralights include things like hang gliders, powered parachutes, other extremely lightweight aircraft. And there's really a unique set of rules that we have in the U.S. that we're taking advantage of for these new types of aircraft. The most important of that is there's no FAA certification requirement for ultralights. There's also no requirement for pilots to have a pilot's license or have a medical. So really anyone is able to fly ultralights. Of course, lots of training, adequate training and safety is highly recommended and a key part of our program. So, I don't know if the video is running in the background. We launched the business and, using the ultralight specifications put out by the FAA, we had our design criteria and basically went from a blank sheet of paper to flying a manned electric multi-rotor in just about a year, which was remarkably fast. It was extremely challenging to, develop an incredibly safe, redundant electric aircraft and conform to the requirements of Part 103, which is extremely lightweight. The base weight requirement is 254 pounds. There are allowances for safety equipment like ballistic parachutes and floats that allow us a bit of a more robust aircraft at about 432 pounds empty weight. Now, ultralights are limited in what they can be used for to recreation and sport use. So that's flying in uncontrolled airspace over uncongested areas. But part of our thesis for the business is that we think there's an untapped market for people who want to experience the joy and the thrill of flying these new types of aircraft. So what we're doing is actually not selling our Hexa aircraft directly to end customers, but rather to make it more accessible for more people. We're going to open locations. Our first location should launch here in Austin by the end of the year, where people can come and rent our Hexa aircraft and pay on a per flight basis. For flights, of course, flight durations are limited by battery technology to between 8 and 15 minutes currently. But we founded the business on this premise. I knew I really wanted to experience flying these new types of aircraft, but I was unsure other people did. So really excited. We unveiled the aircraft, unveiled the business model, and we already have over 14,000 people who have joined wait lists to fly our Hexa aircraft. So really excited about the demand we've seen. We're even more excited, I think, about future uses for these types of aircraft. I think it's time. Excited to work with Agility Prime on further testing and certification for other uses like medevac and first response. So excited. Join us in the breakout room 6.
Thanks, Matt.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you, everyone. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think I'll turn it back over to Brandon and Nathan. I think they're going to give us some guidance on the next steps for the breakout here.
So you all got a quick introduction. You're going to, as you know, this is an air race that has been advertised. So go ahead and you can start racing to the different breakout groups. But before you do that,
I need to give you instructions on the. Don't have them race there yet, Nate. Give the bonus breakout first, and then I'll give you instructions. Speakers, CEOs, please go to the breakouts to be ready for the influx of people wanting to visit you. Nate, you want to introduce the 7th one, and then I'll give the instructions.
Sure. So we've had such overwhelming groups join here that we had to make a 7th room. Unfortunately, it's not another CEO building a cool thing, but they are 2 very cool people. You're going to have the opportunity, if you don't make it into one of the other rooms, to go see Natasha Talentino, who is the program manager. You've heard her yesterday talk about how we are bringing this capability to you through the program office. And
great though too.
Scott McKeever will be there as well. You saw him on the first day for the use cases. So 7th room for those of you who don't get to the other ones. And Brandon, what else we needed to do prior to letting everyone ready break?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite parts of the day, is because it seems a little weird that we would say, hey, leave the YouTube stream and go and collaborate with these CEOs and with other people interested in this. In fact, the first time we did this a few years ago was with the World Bank, when they had to redefine how finance, money that we give to developing countries, could be shifted into small businesses in developing countries. And the leaders, the president of the countries, thought we were crazy that we try to form people into these small breakout groups and try to make the connections to connect directly with these leaders. And it helped change development finance there. And we're hoping it will kickstart for you, Nate, Agility Prime, and all these CEOs to take it forward. So in this second act, what has to happen, or what we please ask that you happen, is you go into the breakouts, you spend the first 10 or 15 minutes with the CEO asking questions, dialogue. We have a facilitator in each room, tech support in each room. And then the second half of those breakouts to actually split into smaller groups where we try to break the world record for the largest number of simultaneous breakouts, which would be pretty cool. They just set a world record this week. But I want to make one really important point about joining these breakouts and the world record. It's not really about setting a record, kind of like Senator Leahy said. It's much bigger than that. There's a power in the action that a bunch of humans like us during a global pandemic conducting a massive set of these discussions to try to innovate and move an entire industry forward. And so that's what I encourage you all to do as you go out into these breakouts, working with the CEOs, working with potential colleagues in your small groups. So instructions are in Slack, in the YouTube chat. They're also coming up on screen. We're going to leave those instructions up on the screen. If you're on agilityprime.com, you'll see the 6 links right below the YouTube feed and that additional room, right, that Natasha kindly offered to volunteer to help lead, and Scott. So you click on those links. Those are all separate Zoom links. Go and join those right now. Stop listening to Nate and I. Go join those rooms. Talk to the CEOs. Come back here inspired.